All right, guys. Well, this is Michael from Infinite Nutrition. Today we got two really special guests. We have Caleb Cline and Caleb Sprayberry, both from the Rusty Dogs of War, possibly my favorite name of any group that we work with. Love it. Welcome, guys. Caleb Cline, you and I have talked in the past, but Caleb Sprayberry is the first time you and I have met. So nice to meet you.
Yes, sir. Nice to meet you as well.
Cool. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Caleb, if you could, just as far as your background. I know a little bit about the other Caleb, but I haven't really talked to you and just kind of like to know a little bit more about your story.
So I was born and raised in Clarksville, Tennessee, right outside of Fort Campbell as an Army brat. Fresh out of high school, I tried college. It was not me, and formal education didn't mesh very well. So at the time, they were offering, unbeknownst to me, very large bonuses during the invasion for joining the Army. So I worked at a Burger King, and a recruiter would come in every morning and give me his business card with his coffee. Hey, man, you don't look like you want to work here very much. So I bit, and I went to the recruiter station and, signed my life away for 4 years and $40,000 of a sign-on bonus. I couldn't tell you what happened to any of that now, of course, but um, the Army.
Probably something fun happened along the way, I'm guessing.
Yeah, my younger, dumber days for sure. Definitely, I'm sure it did. Um, so in the Army, I deployed to during OIF 09-11, technically is what it would be called, to Iraq. I came back. I was stationed at Fort Riley, and then I went to God's country out in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where I spent the rest of my career until I broke my leg and part of my hip and my back on a night jump. And they basically told me, hey, man, look, this is it for you. You can either go back to Afghanistan with a different unit, or we can start processing your medical evaluation board. So, no way, I had a young child. There's no way I'm going to risk it again. So sign me up for the med board. And the rest is kind of history. They were willing to give me what I thought was an acceptable number to get out of the Army at the ripe old age of 27. And so that was it.
Got it.
So I met my wife. I did meet my wife through the Army too, which was, a blessing in disguise. I met her on the way out. So yeah, after that, kind of history and bikes.
And bicycles. And
Yeah.
then how did you transition into the cycling? Was cycling something that you were always interested in, or was this something you picked up after you got back?
So it was something that I picked up after I got out of the Army. I was dealing with severe post-trauma and depression, anxiety, as well as physically not being able to do the things that I was able to do before. I used to do competitive bodybuilding, which involved a lot of squatting and, heavy deadlifting and stuff. And my body just was not able to do those things anymore. We actually lived in Alaska right when I got out of the Army. We moved to Alaska. So you compile, depression and darkness and moving 3,000 miles away from your family, and a whole culmination of different things that led to drinking heavily. And I ended up having to go, through like a rehab program to get away from the drinking. And the doctor was like, hey, man, look, you need to get outside, get some vitamin D. I had no idea. I had ridden bikes as like a kid. But that was one of his options, either swim or get a bike. And so I went down to REI and I bought the cheapest skinny tire bike that I could find, which was an old commuter bike that someone had brought in. And I just started riding every day. And, like all great athletes, it starts as a small tickle, and then out of nowhere, it evolves into this gigantic obsession that you can't put down anymore. And so it snowballed largely from there. over the last 4 years. So
that's interesting. You know, I don't. This is not a story I share very often, but I started working out when I was in rehab too, and I was inpatient at the time, and I don't share the story very much. And got a pair of running shoes and a jump rope, and that's where my Ironman career started. Was running around the hospital grounds. They thought I was batshit crazy in the hospital because I get up and I'm still smoking 2 packs a day, right? And I'm out going around, running around, and that's literally where it all started. I got a pair of running shoes and a jump. So it's those first couple of months after your eyes get clear. It's a pretty amazing thing, right?
Oh yeah.
Michael, I just got to give him kudos. He's never shared this before. In fact, some of those were things that I've never even heard, and I think I know him pretty well. So I'm very impressed at how far he has come and how far we have come in just the short time we have been together as the band of brothers here, and the Calebs as we sign our emails.
The Caleb, yeah.
That's awesome. So how did the relationship start between you guys? When did you guys hook up?
Well, we haven't hooked up yet, but
well, you got to take things slow. But
long walk on the beach.
Old school guys that we are, you got to take things slow.
Well, so believe it or not, a friend of mine, back before he was attempting his world record, sent me a link to a news article and was like, "Hey, man, is this you?" And it was another 100% disabled veteran with a beard that did ultracycling. And I'm like, hey, no, that's totally not me. But his name is Caleb, so it's kind of weird. So I found him on Facebook and I shot him a message and just asked, hey, if you need some people to help, or, if you want somebody just to come out and ride a couple hours with you at night to keep you company, like, hey, I live close, man. Like, I'll be there. And he, messaged me back and said, hey, this world record attempt, I have to do it on my own, but you're more than welcome to come out. And then he said, hey, how about, are you free tomorrow? I'm actually training tomorrow and I'm going to ride by where you live. So I'll just ride out to your house. So the very next day, he just rides his trike up into my driveway and came in and we talked for about 2 hours and then got on his bike and left, and he's like, hey, man, you've done some of these, long distance races too. How about you go and do the world championship time trial with me, the 24-hour race, in November. I think this was probably I don't know when you did it would have been in like,
I did this in April. So I think I was at your house
springtime,
in March.
Yeah. So, and then that was it, man. We just worked out 6 months, about 6 or 8 months, and showed up and did worlds together. So cool experience.
Your mind is twisted when you think close by is 75 miles point to point over a mountain range. So
True.
The rest is history. Now we text each other good morning and good night every day. So I'll let you figure out what that means.
It sounds like you guys are getting close to consummating the relationship, and I think it's all good these days. So how did the Rusty Dogs of War kind of like come up as and as an idea?
So long story short, I did my first ultra. I attempted my first ultra 6 weeks after I got my first trike from the VA. This was the peak beginning of COVID. So I got my first trike July. This race was in September, and as close as possible distance wise, because I found out you actually have to qualify for a race across America. You can't just show up and pay the money, which was probably a wise choice by the directors, especially now that I know them very well. So this is Silver State 508 out of Reno. You ride Reno to Eureka, Nevada, 254 miles one way, turn around and go back. So we're actually going to relay this course this fall and avenge my DNF. But when you show up, you have to have a totem, and the totem has to be an animal and a description of said animal. And so my crew chief at the time was a naval EOD operator who was a bilateral amputee. And my service dog, Striker, is kind of a rust color. And so we just kind of put it all together, and the Rusty Dogs of War was born. And it really took on a life of its own and a meaning of its own in helping other veterans realize your body is probably a little rusty, some more than others, but we still have a dog in the fight, and you need to keep showing up every day to make that happen. So
That's very cool. Caleb, do you see that? I mean, what is that when you hear the word Rusty Dogs Award? What does that mean to you?
Kind of like the old, retired but not expired, so to speak. Just because you get out, and a lot of guys that I know personally, including myself, when you get out of the Army, most guys have done that like their entire adult life, or half of their adult life. So you feel like, I have no direction anymore. I have no, even though you may get a civilian job or you may go to school, there's always like a piece of like brotherhood missing.
Yeah.
And so the Rusty Dogs of War is really a good way for me to connect with other people that are like-minded, as well as guys that are also broken but still striving to be the best, best version of themselves.
Yeah. So, and then what's the effort? What are you guys trying to accomplish with the group? What's the main thing you guys are looking to accomplish?
So we actually now have 6 total athletes competing in various levels, and Caleb connected me with another retired disabled veteran that he served with, and I actually was able to give my first trike to him because he was having similar issues to the issues that I was having riding an upright bike, and he was thinking about hanging it up. And Caleb said, no, hey, reach out to the other Caleb. We're going to solve this problem for you. I mean, at one point I had 4 or 5 trikes sitting in my garage. I ride 2 of them. I'm sponsored by ICE VTX. I ride those. I've got a TT setup and a road bike / kind of mountain bike setup. And so I'm like, hey man, this bike hasn't even been ridden. Like it needs a new owner, and it is damn near indestructible. Get after it. And the smile on his face after he sent me the video and the photos, I was like, that's why we're doing this. We're a 501c3. This is exactly what we're doing. We are here to make other people's lives better, especially when they think that part of their lives is over, or maybe that their whole life is over. Because I know both him and I have been there many times. And the only thing that kept me from pulling the trigger was I had a training plan the next day, and I had people I was accountable to. And if I don't show up, someone's going to be pissed off. So,
yeah, a whole bunch of people would be pissed off. It is a good opportunity. I just want to let you 2 guys know, every year, Memorial Day, we do a give back event at Infinit Nutrition where we donate a portion of that day's revenue. And we want to honor you guys again this year and have the Rusty Dogs of War benefit from that day. So we're in as well. So we want to make sure you guys know that on Memorial Day, we're going to put some money back in the pot.
And I appreciate
Thank you. Thank you.
I know for myself, and I would assume Caleb as well, the volume of training that we do would not be in any way possible without the amount of products and support that you provide us on a daily and monthly yearly basis. So
I don't think people understand. I mean, even the Ironman guys, I don't think people understand quite what the Ram guys go through. Can you go through, both of you guys, just what's your week look like? I mean, you're full-time professionals at that point.
Yeah, this is my 3rd professional full-time job. I'm a single father. I train as much as I can around that, especially the weeks that I have the kids. He's probably looking up his training peaks right now.
No.
And,
He's going to throw his Watts number out here in a second.
And then I'm also in insurance. I'm an insurance manager, so I'm actually building a team below me in that regard as well. All of that to say, I don't really know how this all works, but by the end of the day, I accomplish all the tasks. Let's see, yesterday for me was a lift and a ride. And I actually kind of got this so I went and rode with Iron Cowboy during his 100/100s or 101/100s. And his big thing was, this is muscular endurance, and we always forget the muscular. So both Caleb and I have kind of turned into powerlifting cyclists. I'm 230 pounds, and my bike is at least 40
I'm
pounds.
not.
People really look at me funny when I show up to a start line. I'm like, I mean, this is what it takes when your bike is heavy. Like, I happened to just leg press 1,000 pounds 3 days ago. You know, this is what my life has become, and then I enjoyed my recovery protein shake that you guys made for me. So it really just depends. Solo efforts, and Caleb knows this because he just finished Longhorn 500 solo, one of 3 finishers. I just got to say that, and was ahead of the entire course for over 250 miles, including relays. So it was pretty monstrous. Solo efforts require a lot more endurance riding. Since we're relaying our next race, it's really
You can't bet.
there we go.
Yep.
It's really switched over, at least for me, to more high intensity, higher volume efforts, which is a lot less boring, I'm not gonna lie. But I've soloed multiple races. I mean, long rides would be 8 to 12 hours, once to twice a week. Medium ride at that point was 3 to 5 hours, probably 2 to 3 times a week, and some sprint stuff in between. A lot less weight training, obviously. So it really just depends on what we're going for. But I'm enjoying the sprint phase. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. And what about you, Caleb? What's your training weeks looking like?
So believe it or not, we actually have the same coach. He coaches both of us together. So we kind of bounce our training calendars off of each other, and they're fairly similar. But I have a race, the Hoodoo 500 is like maybe 5 weeks post Raw. So my goal with the Hoodoo is to try and set the course record, which was made last year. So I'm fairly certain that I can, but I don't want to count my chickens. So we have kind of, I told my coach that a long time ago. He told me, hey, look, man, if you want to finish a 500-mile race or do you want to win a 500-mile race? So this time I told him, hey, look, I'm willing to commit to whatever it takes to win a 500-mile race. So since we had started that, it has been like a knockdown drag out. Like I'm riding probably 25 hours a week, for probably like 450 or 475 miles a week, and training in the gym at least 2 of those days, tons of yoga. I have a little bit more leeway because I stay at home most of the time with my son because my wife works full time. I help a small bike shop here in town. To have part-time there, wrenching on bikes, which is beneficial because if you think about how many people ride even 5,000 miles in a year, I'm doing that in 3 months. So like anything you break on a bike, I have probably broken it several times or worn it out several times. So learning how to wrench on your own stuff, has been very detrimental to the amount of hours that I've put in. Like already this year, I've already ridden 7,500 miles, just this year. So, I mean, it's, May.
Yeah, that's crazy numbers. So do you have to, I mean, I would assume that it's a little bit different than a cyclist, that you kind of alluded to it as far as body mass. And it's the weight of the bike and the physics. And I don't want to get techno-weenie about this, but I was just saying, wait, that makes a ton of sense if you're wrestling a 40-pound piece of equipment to have big old ham hock arms to push it, right? Or with your legs, it just
thighs out, skies out. It's always short season around here.
Yeah.
I mean, my tan lines are terrible, but I don't really care. So. Yeah, for me, what people don't realize, the benefit, and the kind of the funny thing, I joke when either I get past or I'm passing people on a course, is if they're standing up, riding their bike and enjoying that leverage, I'm like, hey, you guys are cheating. Like, what is going on here? So the reason why I said I have a road bike, and thankfully ice has really gotten behind me in my efforts of the difference between crazy and eccentric is money in the bank account and support. So I would say my eccentric efforts is I'm really just setting things and figuring stuff out as we go. So Caleb and I decided to do an Everest challenge, which was a terrible choice. October last year.
Yes,
So we went
indoors.
So what did
Well,
that entail? I mean, did you have to hold your breath and do a stair climber or something?
no, wait. Well, we did it indoors and we also did it outdoors. So we actually did it twice. Again, terrible choice the first time. In Everest challenge is climbing the elevation gain from the base to the top of Mount Everest, which is like 30,000 feet on the bike. And so I quickly realized my extreme mechanical disadvantage as well as my body weight. And he's over there smiling because this dude is like a mountain goat. So
Really?
he loves climbing. I don't know what's wrong with him. I love descending because I'm like a bullet. So for me, with a heavy bike and a heavy body mass, and then basically riding a reclining lazy boy, I don't have any mechanical advantage at all. So my manufacturer's out of the UK for my bikes, and I reached back to Ice and I said, "Hey, I don't know how I accomplished this, but I did, and I need help because me doing this over long durations of time is not going to be successful." So I literally have a SRAM Eagle, basically dinner plate rear cassette on my climbing trike, and it's getting fitted for a Zip 808 right now, so I can get some aerodynamics as well. But I mean, that thing is a monster. I roll up and people think I'm racing a mountain bike, and I'm like, well, I'll see it. At least I can climb now. At least I can try to keep up. Versus, he rolls in on his TT bike with the smallest cassette I've ever seen and just laughs at me. And I'm like, man, this isn't fair. But when we come downhill, I literally exude zero effort and nobody can keep up because of the aerodynamic advantage and the mass. So
Yeah.
it's a balance.
Yeah. So it sounds like you guys are building the base here of the team and looking for bigger stuff in the future. What does the future hold for Rusty Dogs and More?
Well, I'll start with at least our team goals, and we have some individual stuff. So we've already signed up for Worlds this year, 24 hours. And if you haven't and you're hearing this and you want to do it, go sign up because the race is already almost sold out. I woke up at midnight to sign up for that race. So I'm doing 24-hour and 6-hour Worlds. He's going to, again, try and basically set the record. He's only doing 24, probably the wise choice. My goal is to RAM qualify solo, which is over 400 miles. He did that on his first attempt last year, somehow, at 430. I've never crossed over 375. So that's my goal, and that's our team goal, is to get as many kind of RAM qualifier things as possible. He's now done it twice within 6 months back-to-back solo. This summer will be doing the 2-man race across the West in 5 weeks. He has already alluded to his Hoodoo 500, so we'll be handling that. And then we should be doing Silver State 508 as a 2-man relay about 5 or 6 weeks before we get into Worlds. So that's really what 2023 looks like. 2024, and this hasn't been announced officially, but I guess we'll do it here and now. We're putting together an 8-man RAM relay. And we want to go as wide as possible. So I've got a hand cyclist. Her name is Wendy, badass female. She showed up to Texas Longhorn 500 with the full understanding of, I don't expect to finish. I'm using this as a training ride. She is going to be the first female hand cyclist to, I even believe, attempt, but obviously her goal is to finish the race across the West as a solo. I've attempted that before. I ended up in the hospital halfway through. Mad props to Wendy. So she's on our relay. I'm looking for at least one other hand cyclist. But then we're also trying to bring in 4 West Point cadets. So I graduated from West Point in 2014. I've already reached back to the cycling team, which I was not a member of, but have since become, I would say, obsessed. And I want to kind of help bridge the gap, civilian to soldier, cadets, veterans, disabilities, really kind of show the wide variety of things that people deal with. And Wendy's son actually went to the Air Force Academy. So, you know, there's kind of a lot of ties. That's a 3,000 plus mile race. And I have a Go Army Beat Navy flag that we will fly the entire way and plant at the Naval Academy upon the finish. And it's hanging on my wall right now. So that's really our big, our BHAG, our big, hairy, audacious goal, if you will. And then from there, I think personally for me, my goal is to go back and solo these races that I haven't finished but am relaying. So Silver State, 508, race across the West, race across America. And time will come and training and things that will allow me to do that. And ideally, and why I bring this up is Wendy and I are in unique and kind of similar situations. She can't compete for Team USA because her classification level of what put her on a hand cycle is unrecognized. But she's like the fastest female hand cyclist in the nation. Okay. She set the Boston Marathon record and then broke it and reset it. Okay, cool, no problem. I'm unable to compete because my bike doesn't exist in the cycling world at all, which is fine. We don't even have our own category between 2-wheelers and 3-wheelers, which is a whole nother beast. But my goal is to go out and really just help show the difference, show the world what is capable. And honestly, this stuff is generically given to veterans with similar issues through the VA. So why are we not giving them that competitive drive, whether it's a 100-mile race, a 5-mile race, or a 3,000-mile race? Why are we not out showing people what is capable when, you know, it may not have been that long ago that they were kicking indoors and shooting dudes in the face and thought they were indestructible. So trying to ignite that fire inside of people. I know that's what it did for me. And I don't expect to go anywhere but up. So
yeah, and by establishing a classification for those folks, it gives them, not that anybody needs that, but it's nice to be able to compete against people that are like and similar.
I see myself as an upright cyclist until I come to a hill and am quickly reminded I am not. But yes, I want to compete with everybody else, but it would sure be nice to know, hey, your efforts are obviously different. Let's bring some awareness to that, and that's perfectly fine. So, and I know Caleb's got probably a whole list of things he wants to do. So,
all right, go ahead, Caleb. Let's hear it.
Honestly, the things that my brain, and I don't know if it's just my brain specifically, but I just want to attempt the hardest things on the bike that are physically possible to do. So initially, when I bought that bike from REI, I rode 15 miles the first day and my legs were wrecked. Like I couldn't hardly walk upstairs to my apartment, you know, and I'm on the computer like, man, what's the hardest thing I can do? Well, there's the race across America, you know, so and my wife can attest to this. That was back in, 2019 or something. But I'm like, I'm doing this, like I'm doing this before I turn 40. I'm doing the race across America, and lo and behold, now all of a sudden it became this thing that was actually a reality, is in my grasp. I could do it if I can just get there, so we're in the baby steps. But was that the saying, if you shoot for the moon and miss, at least you'll hit the stars kind of thing? Like, I just want to do all of the other hard stuff that's physically possible for me to do before I get to the point where my kid gets too old and I cannot, then I have to go to his sports practices and stuff. It can't just be me. So I've got like probably a good 5-year window left to do like anything. I know there's a 500-mile race in Florida that I want to attempt at some point in time. There's one in Oregon for the championship jersey, the ultracyclist jersey. I want to go there and try that at some point in time. So hopefully in the next 3 years, I can knock out at least those two. And the only other stone left unturned is somewhere in Europe, and that's like a whole other ball game, going over there.
Why is it different?
We got to get our bikes there.
Yeah. Well, that and the people, like ultra cycling is a niche community of cycling in general, so when you go to ram races, you could probably count maybe 50 of the same people that you see probably at every single one of them. And outside of that, you get one or two, and they always have a discount for people under 30, because generally guys that do this have the time to train for it, which is, guys that are retired or, can work remotely, things like that. So, cycling is like the NASCAR of America, cycling in Europe, so to go over there and do that kind of thing, it's a totally different environment, the weather and the atmosphere and the people and the roads, and it's just a whole other. I mean, I would love to get over there someday and try it, but there's a whole other.
Is there a different level of competition over there, or is it like is it same?
I would like to think that there are more ultra cyclists in Europe. I've tried to kind of keep blinders on and focus on, this year, one at a time. But speaking for guys that have won ultra cycling events, a lot of them have been European. So, they're bleeding over into our playing field. I would like to do the same at some point over in their playing field.
And I think really the only barrier, there's a couple things. Logistically, you got to get your bike over there.
Yeah.
Or in my case, my trikes. Honestly, what I would probably do is, if I was going to the UK where they're making them, I would just tell them what I need and bring what they don't have, and we would build them on site. It's not worth flying them or shipping them or them being damaged or lost. And then, so I just bought this massive, basically support van from Van Do It. You've got to have the right vehicle. We've got to have the right equipment following us. We've got to make sure that we have all our fuel, etc. So it's just a lot of unknowns. Not that it can't be done, because I would like to go over there and do the same thing. Joe Barr and Christoph Strasser are kind of the name of the game over there, and Marco Ballo. And they come over here and wreck shop, and they'll come to 24-hour worlds. They're coming to race across America. They do great things for the community. But they've obviously figured out how to get their stuff over here. So we need to pick their brains and do the same thing to figure out how we can get over there. So
very cool. So speaking of nutrition, what do you guys do when you're actually riding out there? What's your nutrition protocols? How do you kind of lead up into an event as far as your food goes? Are there special dietary things that you guys have to deal with, or by just kind of how are you feeling, how you're hydrating, how you're recovering?
So the interesting thing about ultra cycling is that, coming from a bodybuilding background where your diet literally is everything, you have to watch like what your sodium intake is, how many grams of carbs. So when I started cycling competitively, it was really hard for me to break that mindset of you have to eat this way specifically. And maybe if you were racing shorter races where a really low body weight made you faster over a shorter period of time, but obviously the less weight you have, the less you have to carry uphill, but you can get away with eating more. Because I'll be honest with you, like, probably I eat pretty strict about 4 weeks out, just so that I can trim all the loose ends, so that I can be as lean as possible without it being a bad relationship with food. But the day before, I usually eat like a complete track panda. Pop-Tarts, muffins, like by the case. I think at Worlds, I ate 2 boxes of cinnamon sugar Pop-Tarts, boxes like the family box, and then an entire case of muffins from Costco. And I'll tell you, during the race, that was the first time in a 24-hour period that I strictly used Infinit. And so a little special trick that I have always done is I cut all the caffeine out a week prior, so that when you need the caffeine, it works. So what I would do is obviously you drink 1 bottle an hour. and I would wait till I was about 16 or 18 hours in before I added the caffeine, because then it's like, cracking the whip all of a sudden out of nowhere. You're not falling asleep on the bike anymore. So definitely, for really long races, you've got to do solid food mixed with Infinite at the beginning, because after probably 15 hours or so, your body has a hard time digesting solid foods. So
Also,
you have to go.
when it's cold, we need more solid foods to kind of
Yeah.
help maintain. And unfortunately, I kind of learned that the hard way, because I basically turned into a fire hydrant and I couldn't stop pissing like the whole ride. And I don't stop. Like, I just pee while I ride. So for me, it's not a time issue, but I was unable to basically hold or keep the nutrients in, because my system was just flushed. So we kind of figured out that balance. And when it's cold, I need to kind of slow that process down. But I mean, you should have seen the amount of Infinite that he took in over Longhorn 500. How was it? Two full bags?
Yeah, I drank an entire tube because it was so humid, the conditions in Texas versus the conditions in Nevada. The heat was about the same, but the humidity was, 100% in Texas versus like less than 10% out here. The amount of water I'm drinking is 2 bottles every hour. So I would do like 1 bottle of Infinite and 1 bottle of water. And towards the end, it was like 2 bottles of Infinite every hour. So it got to where I finished an entire bag of the single serving samples without caffeine probably halfway through the race. Just like 24, 26 servings. And then I finished probably half a bag of the caffeinated version that I made towards the end. So I was probably close to 40 servings of Infinite over like a 32 hour time period of being awake.
So you were pumping 500-600 calories an hour.
Yeah, easily.
Easily, yeah. And here's the other trick that we figured out. Flavor fatigue is a real thing when you get tired of eating and drinking, and you have to keep it interesting. So I think we have 3 or 4 separate flavors of the exact same product.
Yep.
And I learned that one the hard way and passed on the wisdom, so that hopefully he didn't have to basically get bored of drinking stuff. And that's kind of where the mind game comes in of, do I really want to keep doing this? And my coach's favorite thing to say, and it's so annoying, is, you signed up for this.
Yeah.
I'm just like, bro,
you signed up for this. Yeah.
screw you. Like, thanks for the reminder. I would say my diet's pretty consistent to Caleb's. It's ironic that we finish races and you look and you're like, man, you're the peak of health and fitness. And you're like, you know how much Trolley gummy worms and Sour Patch Kids and, maybe I ripped a 5-hour energy or 2 on top of caffeine. Like, there's nothing about this that is healthy. Maybe fit, definitely eccentric, but there's a lot of little things that you do to kind of keep your body revving at that high of a level for that long of a time. And honestly, just staying awake becomes a whole nother battle. You're not tired, you're just hungry. Or maybe you are tired. Maybe you are hungry. Or maybe you just don't want to do this anymore.
And it's not necessarily cookie cutter to each person either. This is something that we've experimented with, several weeks going into the race. The Training Peaks instructions will be like, hey, for this 8-hour time period, I want you to fuel as you think you're going to be racing. So you bring your Infinite, you bring maybe a Cliff Bar or 2, and maybe you decide, man, this isn't enough, or this didn't work this time, so what can I add or change, so that when you get to the race itself, you've got it dialed in. And your crew spreadsheet, every hour, what do they eat, so make sure, that you're only focused on riding the bike, and that these other guys are just, slamming food and drinks.
Yeah, I did a talk last night with the Wisconsin Cycling Club, and there's a lot of questions about how much carbs and 90 grams and 120 grams. it was over the top. And the only thing I try to tell people, and I've learned this over 20 years, is that may or may not work for you. But the one thing I know is everybody's different.
Yep.
Everybody's different. And so, you're talking about flavor sensitivity. Some people like a little flavor. Some people want a lot. Some people like salty stuff. Other people like, the protein I love, especially for the endurance. I don't get hungry if we use a small amount of protein in a drink. And that's a really nice thing not to have to eat. But again, it's all up to the individual. Caffeine is incredibly individual, whether it works for you or not. So it's kind of like it's dependent on the person. And everybody, it's good to listen to other people, but you need to listen to yourself and what works for you.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't test it, good luck. That's all I can say. Because I watch people bonk in 100 miles of a 1,000-mile race, and everyone wants to blame it on this, that. I'm like, you probably just missed something, right? Or you showed up and it was 130 degrees out, and you haven't trained in that, so you don't know how to react. And I don't know about you guys, if you've ever tried to drink a hot bottle of Infinit, not a good move.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it.
Actually, I have no problems with, because it's saltier and it doesn't really bother me. I have no problems drinking it.
See, so there you go, right down to the individuality. I refuse. I'll hand it back to a crew and say, I want a cold one. I need it in an insulated bottle. I need to be this flavor. So I'm probably more of a princess than Caleb is in that regard.
I was gonna throw a little wah in there.
Oh, for sure. But as our coach says, just shut up, be the big dumb animal, and ride your bike. Like that, you turn your brain off and ride the bike. Oh,
yeah, I definitely. I'll drink it. I'll drink it hot. I'll drink it cold. I'll drink any of the flavors. They all taste good to me. But the good thing with Infinit is that you can, once you figure out, what exactly works for you, then you can save that in your profile, and you can just order it again and again and again. And you don't have to keep experimenting, because he drinks more caffeine than I do. So we can't share them back and forth, because he'll drink 200 milligrams of caffeine a serving, and that'll, stop my heart on the bike, whereas I drink it, but it's a lot of like 50 milligrams of caffeine per serving, so it's definitely, for the person, but it's well worth it.
That's awesome. Well, good. So cool. I don't, do you have any questions of me? I mean, as far as Infinit goes or anything like that? I mean, I enjoy obviously talking to you guys. It's and supporting you is super easy. So we're just very appreciative of the relationship that we have, and if there's anything we can help to be supportive for you guys, we want to make sure we're doing it.
Thank you. How did you guys come up with the concept of? Because no other companies do that. The customizable blends.
Mm-hmm. It was me and an original partner by the name of Mike Kaiser. He had the original idea. He had medical background and understood about osmolality, and so we were both Ironman guys. And I knew from my racing career that the days that I had good marathons, because it always comes down to the marathon for Ironman, when I had a good run, were all based on nutrition. I mean, 100% nutrition related. I was always fit. I was always able to run, but I just was not able to start running fueled. When I did it, I crushed it. I had a great race. And so when he said, hey, I got an idea, I want to do custom nutrition for athletes, it was like, yeah, okay. I mean, it took about 30 seconds, because we all know what we do out there. And to do a chemistry experiment sitting on a bike seat, pain in the ass. So if you can just put it in your bottle, make it taste how you want, and drink a bottle an hour, and there's no difference chemically between gels and drinks. It's the same thing. So that was the original concept. We tweaked a whole bunch, but that's really where it started. Was in 2004. We were going over to race in Hawaii. Actually, he and I.
That's cool.
Michael was 60, won his age group in Blackwater by 20 minutes. He was a beast and a great athlete. So, yeah, we joined up.
I just got to give you guys kudos and credit.
Oh,
and I think part of my reason why I had been unsuccessful in, like, when I attempted this race.
You're good.
When I attempted Race Across the West 2020, I had garbage nutrition, garbage. I literally ran caffeine the entire time. So I didn't sleep for, I don't know, 2.5 days, which isn't necessarily a problem. But when I did try to sleep, I couldn't gear down.
Yeah.
There was so many mistakes that I made as a rookie that I just went out and thought, well, I'm just ballsy. Like, nobody cares, dude.
I have flair.
Right, 135 degrees outside. You sit 3 inches off the ground. Like, every little piece matters. And so now I know so much of what I didn't know, and I am fully expectant. Our goal is to break the course record, which is 46 hours and 40 minutes. They set the year that I ended up in the hospital. So I fully expect an epic performance of just maximum effort for slightly under 2 days, and we'll see what happens at the finish line. So
that's freaking awesome. I love it. Gentlemen, it's been fun. I enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully I'll see you guys out in the field, shake your hand face to face. So that would be enjoyable someday.
Absolutely.
I would love the same, yes.
And hopefully once we get the van and everything's dialed in, I want to make a trip out to headquarters and figure it all out and watch the secret sauce.
You have a soft spot to land, my friend. We'll take you out. We'll have a good time. We'll show you Cincinnati. It's a good town.
Awesome.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Caleb and Caleb. Thanks, gentlemen. Good to see you guys. All right. Be safe out there.
All right. Thanks. Have a good day.
Appreciate you. Bye.